Welcome to Season 2 of Chillin' with Ice. I'm your host, Lori Fetrick, also known as Ice from the hit iconic show, American Gladiators. If you're new to the show, make sure you go back and listen to some of the funniest, jaw-dropping behind-the-scenes stories from some of the original American Gladiators. In Season 2 of Chillin' with Ice, you're going to hear some real one-on-one conversations with pop culture icons, athletes, and lifestyle gurus, and that's just to name a few. We will be covering everything from 90s classic, fitness, anti-aging, to recent trends, and so much more. This podcast is where legends live on. Before we dive into our incredible episode today, I want to let you know that this is a self-funded podcast, and I would love your support. For the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you can donate to my Patreon page, and that would make all the difference in the world. For the small donation, you will get back so much in rewards. Like you can watch all of my podcasts on video. I will have exclusive content like behind-the-scenes footage, a private Facebook group where you can interact with me directly and other VIP fans, a monthly Q&A, direct shout-outs, and follows from me to you on your social media, and so much more. Find me on Patreon at Chillin' with Ice, or click the link in the show notes now. Okay, let's dive in.
We are chilling with ice.
Really? That's all you got today, Jeff?
Yeah, it's pretty much.
That's it?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen you, so I've been doing those like little vocal exercises.
Can you try it one more time, a little deeper, a little raspier maybe? I don't know.
We are chilling with ice.
Oh my God, it's starting to sound like a sex program.
That's not a bad thing. Hello, ladies.
There you go, exactly. That was nice.
Yeah, what's up, Lori? How you been?
Oh, everything's good. Everything's good. How have you been? I haven't seen you for a while.
I've been good. Just prepping for the holidays and.
That's right. Christmas is coming up.
Yeah.
My favorite
Christmas
holiday.
Is coming.
It is my favorite holiday.
Yeah, Halloween's my favorite. So, but
yeah, I could do without that.
Yeah, you can do without Halloween. Why?
Yeah, I don't give a shit about Halloween.
Why? People could be you for Halloween, though.
That's true, though. That
Seriously,
is so true.
Say something in the comments, guys. Like whoever can show the best ice American Gladiator Halloween costume.
There you go.
Show it to us. I want to see that now.
There is a chick on TikTok. Somebody actually sent it to me. She has 6.8 million followers. And she dressed up like me for Halloween.
That's dope.
That was cool.
That's dope.
I did. I kind of DM'd her back, and I was like, that's awesome.
You know you made it.
I mean,
I know.
Yeah, well,
it's
no one can
cool.
beat me for Halloween because no one knows what I look like. So
I know what you look like. I'll dress up like you next year.
Oh, great! Maybe I'll dress up as you. That'll be a lot of fun.
Pretty sure I have clothes just like that at home. I could dress up.
There
Oh,
you
fantastic.
go. Exactly. There was a guy when I was bartending.
Old Navy.
When I was bartending like years and years ago, he asked me. He goes, "Hey, can I borrow your uniform?" I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because I'm going to dress up just like you for Halloween and come in." And he was in the band. He was a lead singer. So I was laughing my ass off. He's up on stage as a lead singer with my uniform on, and like his package was kind of coming out of my shorts and everything. It was kind of funny.
Where did you bartend?
A little place called the Sugar Mill up in Tarzana.
Oh, cool.
That's so cool.
It was a really cool place.
Who's this mysterious voice that we have
exactly.
today? I love that he's just chiming in.
Are you trying to tell me to get into it? All right, I'll get into this.
No, I mean, if you have any other questions.
My guest today is, okay, you told me how to say your last name again. Hold on, don't even say it.
Smith.
Lee Abbamonte.
Boom.
Nailed it. Lee Abbamonte. Listen to this, Jeff. This guy didn't tell you who he was when I first came in. He has traveled to every single country in the world. That's 321 plus 193 UN member states. I'm going to ask you what that means, actually. Sorry. And that's including, he's been to the South Pole and the North Pole, which is insane. He has, let's see what's here. It says, he's known as a travel expert on many channels like Fox News, NBC, CBS, CNN, and ESPN, and that's just to name a few. He is an actual Wall Street veteran. And that means that I know he's laughing over here.
I live to survive.
Exactly. He worked in corporate finance and wealth management for 8 years. And he's got a double degree in finance and marketing along with his MBA.
Sounds important.
Damn, you do sound important. And here, this is the fun part here. His highlights, his extreme highlights. You hang glided over Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It was
That
awesome.
is cool.
It's so cool. Dodging bullets. We're going to talk about that too. Dodging bullets was at the Lebanon Civil War.
Libya.
There it is.
Yeah.
Libya Civil War. And let's see what else. Oh, conquering the world's highest bungee jump in South America. Oh my gosh. And also, he was actually, were you tracking silverback gorillas?
Yeah. In East Africa. Yeah, both in Rwanda and Uganda. Yeah, it's...
Lee, that is so cool and
Thanks.
super impressive.
Thanks. Try to get around.
I mean, you try to get around.
Are you
There's-
John McClane?
It is Christmas, right?
It is, exactly. Yeah.
I read that
Yippee-ki-yay.
he was the what did they call you? The 21st century.
Marco Polo of the 21st century. Yeah. I didn't give myself that nickname, by the way. Arthur Frommer's from like Frommer's Guidebooks, the kind of the OG. He called me that on a radio program about like 15 years ago, and I thought it was the coolest thing.
And
so
it just stuck.
I just kind of took it. Yeah.
I like it. It was on your website. I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. But I want to know this. Let's start out with this. I mean, how old were you when you first started traveling?
I was 20. I had just turned 20, and it was a study abroad in London. And so it was 1998, and I was just doing the normal college thing. I went to the University of Maryland, did sports and fraternity and, the usual stuff. And then I was just like, I kind of want something else. One of my best friends was like, hey, I'm going to go study abroad in London. You want to come? And I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I'd never been out of the country. I'm like, what's there to do in London? He's like, well, you don't have to be 21 to drink. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Like a score.
And I remember I called up my dad. I was just like, Dad, I'm thinking about going to London to study abroad. And he was just like, what the hell do you want to do that for? I was like, fuck you, I'm going. And that was literally how it went.
Oh my God. So from London at that point in time, where'd you, I guess my question is when did you decide that you were going to see every country in the world? Or did it just kind of happen?
It kind of developed. Like I never intended to do that. So when I was living in Europe that year, I went to like 15 European countries that particular year, just for fun, like weekend trips, like Spain, France, Germany, Oktoberfest, that type of thing. And it just kind of went from there, right? And then I took a big Asia trip, my first solo trip the next year in South America. And then I went to Africa. And then in 2006, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with one of my best friends. And we're just sitting there just being like, wow, it'd be really cool to like, get paid for this and like just travel and like, I don't know, write or whatever.
Like everybody's dream.
Yeah, like you never really thought about it. You know what I mean? The internet, I didn't really use the internet much. There was no social media, at least that I was on at that time. And so 3 weeks later, the same guy sends me this email or whatever with an article about this guy who at the time was the youngest to go to every country in the world. So I just kind of took inventory of time and money, and I'd already been to about 110 countries or something like that. So I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do this. And I literally just did it. That was it.
Okay, now you say, so my first question is for all my viewers and listeners and everything, because my first question would be like, well, how did he finance all this? It sounds like it'd be super expensive to do.
It's definitely not cheap. I would say time and money are the two great equalizers of travel. Most people who have time don't have money. Most people who have money don't have time. Yeah. So you have to have both and also the desire to do it. But for me, I sold my first business when I was 21, and then I worked on Wall Street for several years. Mm-hmm. And so I had some finances to do it. And it was just one of those things. I just decided to do it kind of for fun. When I was still working, I would take maximize my vacation time. And then I quit my job in 2008 for the final time. I did it twice actually, for the final time. And then I went to business school because I figured like I'd do something productive so I didn't look like I had a resume gap like when I came back from finishing all the countries. So I went to business school, finished all the countries, and I just figured I'd get a job. And then when I finished going to all the countries, I basically got a lot of media attention and started being asked to like do speeches and like do TV segments. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then I remember there was a credit card company that offered me money to talk about myself. I was like, holy cow, this is great.
Yeah.
So then basically I haven't worked since then, more or less.
So sponsors and things like that. So that just opened up the entire door.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And like I've done some really cool things. I've been like, the spokesman for a bunch of different multinationals, like, companies like Bank of America and Allianz Travel Insurance. And I've worked with Google and Microsoft, Four Seasons, Fairmont, different airlines, you name it. It's been great.
You have the dream job.
It's pretty cool.
Literally. I mean, that everybody, because you're absolutely right. If people don't have, the money, they have the time and vice versa. And you have the dream job. So
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, like anything else, like when it's you know, there's always ups and downs. But I mean, you know, it beats like, I don't know, selling like insurance or something like that, you know?
Don't say that. I did that once. No, you're right, though. So where's your home base?
Here in LA. I moved out here almost exactly 3 years ago from New York City, which I lived in for, well, in Manhattan for 21 years. And then I grew up outside the city.
So I'm going to have I have some questions that I've had like through my social media and some friends that, you know, they knew that I was going to interview you. So one of the questions is, and I found this kind of fascinating as well, is when it comes to climate and people, okay? So the colder the climate, the warmer the climate, how are the people in the colder climate? Are they nice? Are they rigid? Because it's a freezing climate. So you know what I'm saying? And then you go, you know, the opposite of that into the warmer climate and you have the people, you know, on the islands or whatever. Have you noticed a difference in,
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, I mean, again, I'm a New Yorker, right? So like, you know, people are like, New Yorkers are abrupt. They just kind of get to the point, and that's true. We don't have a lot of time. We don't want to waste it. Kind of like, I guess maybe it goes with the cold, just get what you need to do done and then move on, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to some of the islands, I mean, you're talking about the slowest moving people on earth, and that's fine, you know, but even here in LA, right? Like just moving out here to LA, people are very slow, at least for like an East Coaster moving out here. So that's been a bit of an adjustment. Even like just getting coffee, you know, it can take forever sometimes out here, right? But it's funny to me, and I've like, it's not like I hadn't been out here a million times, so I like kind of knew what I was getting into, but the warmer the climate, generally the slower things go.
Are they nicer?
Generally nicer, yeah. And they also, I mean, if we're talking about, you know, random islands in the Pacific or the Caribbean, you know, they're usually pretty chill because that's basically what you do down there is you just kind of chill. But yeah, very nice people, especially the Pacific Islanders, I find very nice.
I know, and I don't even want to ask you this, but I have to ask you because I love, out of anything, islands. That's my go-to.
Yep.
Out of all the islands that you've actually went to, what is the most, let's say, beautiful, you just kind of went, oh my God, you know?
You know, I mean, obviously beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? But some of my favorites, it's hard to pick like one.
I know.
There's,
of course.
So you probably heard of the Cook Islands, right?
Yes.
In the Pacific. So the Cook Islands are great, but there's this one specific atoll there called Aitutaki, and it's a mouthful, but it's got to be the most beautiful kind of water, like perfect tropical South Pacific, like the thing you dream about. Like when you see, you know, pictures on Microsoft screensavers, you don't even know where they are. That's like where they are. It's like so nice, right? And probably my favorite island in the world is an Australian island called Lord Howe Island. And it's about 1,000 miles or so from Sydney. You got to fly there. But I'm not sure if they still do, but they used to limit it to about 200 people a day on islands. So, I mean, it's great. You know, you just walk around, you're not like overwhelmed with tourists or anything like that. It's also expensive. So, you know, it takes an effort to get there and a commitment. And those are a couple of my favorites. But another place that I love is Easter Island. And
I've heard of that. Yeah,
it's so cool with the moai. It's just like you're just wandering around. There's wild horses and great seafood, but then there's these like mysterious moai that are like, you know, 15 feet high, and who knows how they got there.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
So cool.
The mystery of the world. I love that part of it. And now the next thing is I mean, tracking silverback gorillas. I mean, how is that? That just sounds like so fascinating and just amazing. I mean,
yeah, it's one of the great trips in the world. Like as a kid, I watched the movie Gorillas in the Mist with Sigourney Weaver, right? And I was
we all
like,
cried.
Right. And you're like, but wow, that's pretty cool. She got to like, you know, interact with the gorillas and stuff like that. And so back in 2010, I went to Rwanda for the first time, and I did it there, right? And I had terrible weather, terrible. It was freezing. It was cold. The gorillas climbed up to 13,500 feet. It took us like 8 hours to get there. And you only get an hour with them, by the way. So like you have to maximize your time. And by the time we got there, I was freezing cold, but I loved the hour, right? Then I went back in Uganda and did it again right before COVID in 2019. And it was like the most magical experience. It was so great. The weather was perfect. The gorillas were like, there was a lot of them and you were right there with them.
Tell me about that magical moment that you felt. Go a little deeper into that. I want to know what that means for you.
Well, it means, number one, thank God they didn't like rush at me because they're enormous creatures, right? Like, and, you know, and you're sitting there like,
okay, how tall are you?
6'3".
And okay, 6'3", what do you weigh?
187. I weighed myself this morning, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. And let's say a silverback is standing next to you.
Oh God, he's enormous. I mean, if they're standing up, they're much taller, and probably 7-8 feet tall, I'd say. Wow. But they're, I mean, enormous, like 1,500, 1,800 pounds. That's just a guess. I don't know that, but I mean, either way, they kick your ass.
Look right, exactly.
You don't want to mess with them,
right? So just that magical moment of being in their presence.
Yeah, and then especially like the coolest thing for me is like when you finally do find the gorillas, you usually find a bunch of them because they kind of travel in packs, right? And you'll see babies and like, you know, mothers with their babies, and it's just like the cutest thing, right? Like any animal cubs or, you know, whatever little gorillas are called are just so cute. But to see it and to realize you flew all that way and climbed up into the jungle and you found them and you're there. And there's so few people that get to do it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, they weigh between 300 and 450 pounds.
Okay.
That's a little different than 1,500, but I
feel like the biggest silverbacks are more than that. I mean, these are massive creatures. But I'm sure you're right. If you're Googling it, Google's never wrong.
That is so
That's a whole
funny.
nother subject.
All right, so let's get back. Let's go to I have a couple more questions here. Yeah. Interesting. What has taught you more, education or traveling?
Oh, traveling without question. I say that all the time. Travel is the best education you can ever get because it teaches you everything that books cannot teach you and like teachers cannot teach you. And it gives you real life experience, right? Like not, you know, going to college and like getting wasted and like hanging out in your fraternity, that type of thing, which is cool too. But traveling is like the best because you learn about different cultures. You learn about yourself. You learn to be on your own. You learn to figure stuff out, especially when you don't speak the language. And those are like really valuable skills, right? Like I talk to people who don't travel at all. They're like, well, how do you deal with the language barrier? Well, you figure it out.
You do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, and you learn, right? Because like you can watch movies or read books or I don't know if kids read books anymore, but if,
not,
but like, you know, I read everything when I was a kid, but until you actually see stuff, like the first time I saw like, I don't know, the Louvre or like, you know, the Eiffel Tower, or like Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, you're just like, holy cow, this is awesome. And like you really experience it and it makes it real. Mm-hmm. And that's what traveling has done for me. It makes it real and you interact with people and you learn about culture and you learn about food and you learn bits of languages and you learn just different customs in different places. And it just makes you feel smarter and more confident in everyday life because you feel like you have more information and experience than others.
Do you like traveling alone or do you like traveling with a companion of some
sort? I
like
like both. And it really depends. And, you know, I get questions like this a lot. And like solo travel is wonderful in certain places, but sometimes you want to experience stuff with others. Like I've been very fortunate. I've had 3 different friends who I've been to over 50 countries with. Nice. And, you know, just people who have similar interests and you got to be chill. There can only be kind of like one person like calling the shots, so to speak. And the other person, people, whoever have to kind of go along with it.
Just follow you.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, you got to compromise a little bit. That's what's great about solo travel. You don't have to compromise at all. You can do whatever you want, you know? So it kind of depends. It's hard to get someone to like go to Afghanistan with you,
yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
If you want to go to Afghanistan. But, you know, if you're in like, I don't know, like a tropical paradise, it's better to be with somebody, you know, because it gets kind of boring, you know, sometimes out there.
I would imagine that.
Yeah.
This has got to play kind of havoc on your love life as well because you travel so much and you're in and out and you're moving country. And let's say hypothetically you meet somebody in a country and you're like, well, yeah, how does that all work out?
You know, it's like one of those things, right? Like if you want to make effort, you make effort. I mean, that's essentially what it is. And yeah, it's not the easiest person to date, someone like me, but you know, it's doable. And at the same time, again, if you want to make something work, whether you work in my line of work or, you know, if you're a lawyer and you work 20 hours a day, it's kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? So just a little different, but it just depends. It all comes back down to effort.
I get that. So going back to the world, what is your biggest first world problem? What would you say that like you're laughing about that. I'm like, when you've traveled all over the place. Yeah. So what would you see as a whole that you kind of go, this is what the problem is?
Me personally, my first world problems?
Yeah, personal.
How about when I don't get upgraded to first class? That on a long flight? God. nightmare. You know, it's
You're
like
so bad. Oh my
I'm
God.
just saying, you know, you said
Wait a minute,
mine.
are you kidding? I just got my first, because I'm starting to do appearances again, and I was laughing because one of my first appearances, I got my first class airline for the longest time. I'm like, score! Finally, I made it.
It's like night and day, right?
Isn't it?
And I'm like half kidding, but also serious.
No, I'm serious.
But like, you know, it's that, and then just basically just the annoyances of travel, right? Like just dealing with airlines and dealing with security and taxis, and
I can only imagine what you've went through.
Yeah, and like even just getting to and from the airport. I mean, it could be like a nightmare in certain places. I mean, Christ, in New York City, you know, you never knew if it was going to take you 20 minutes to get to JFK or 2 hours, right? So then you'd end up, you know, getting out there, take the train, and then you'd sit in the airport forever. And I don't know, just little things that annoy you. I mean, first world problems, right? It's, you know, I'm not complaining, but you did ask.
I know, I did. I do. It's interesting because I've traveled, but not a lot.
Yep.
You know, all over the United States, obviously, but went over to England, a little bit of Europe, Italy, you know, south of France, little things like that, and Bora Bora. That was one of my favorite places as far as I went.
It's not a bad place.
But I want to go to Fiji really bad. You know, I can't wait about that.
Fiji is one of my favorites in the world, and I've spent months there because I've been there a bunch of times because it's kind of like a base point to
Okay,
explore.
you're the guy I'm calling when I go to Fiji because
Anytime.
because they have all those, you know, just tons and tons of islands. You're like, which ones you choose?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's kind of a hard one. Let's talk about bullets flying at you. What happened with that? I mean, how did you find yourself in that situation in the first place?
So back in 2011, I had been to 192 countries, which is one short of being to all of them. And I was in Algeria during the Arab Spring. And the plan was to fly to Tripoli, Libya. But at that time, essentially a civil war like broke out like with Gaddafi and like all this stuff, and it was the Arab Spring, and they closed down the airport and essentially the country to foreigners, so I couldn't go. So I'm sitting there one short of being in every country, and that was, I believe, March that year. So I had to basically just go home and kind of wait it out. In August that year, I got an email from a guy I know in Cairo, and he was just like, hey, I think you can get into Libya through the border of Egypt. And I was like, okay. And literally, I just went to Cairo, flew out to this remote desert outpost called Mersa Mutra, which no one's ever heard of. And it's about 3 hours from the border, I think it was. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I had $5,000 cash in my pocket. I figured I'd have to pay somebody for something. And
wait a minute. Did you find you had to do that a lot, speaking of which?
I always was prepared to have to do it and would always try not to do it. And I was pretty good at not doing it. But occasionally you find yourself in a situation where, I mean, the money was like negligible. You'd have to give somebody like $2, right, to like get out of some annoying situation, or like a cop was hassling you in like Nigeria, which happened to me a lot. You know, you just give them a couple bucks and then they just leave you alone.
Just pay them off.
It's so ridiculous, like the level of corruption in certain places. But it's like little money, so it's just like you just kind of shake your head and move on, right? Anyway, so I see this guy at the airport in Mersa Mutra who looked, you know, well-educated. He had like a blazer on, and he had a Libyan rebel lapel pin. So I go up to him, asked him if he speaks English. He says yes. He asked me like, what the hell are you doing here? And I explained to him what I was doing. He goes, so what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. Can you help me get a taxi to the border or something? You know, just speak Arabic and help me out. And he goes, no, I got you. And he goes, my brother's coming in a minivan from Tobruk, Libya, which is in eastern Libya, to pick me up and bring me out to like Tobruk. And I was just like, so you'll transport me across the border? He's like, yeah, no problem. I was like, this is amazing. Sure. And he didn't want any money. He didn't want anything. He was just like happy to help. And I was like, this is amazing. So fast forward 3 hours later, we're at the border, and there's like, we're about 3 cars away from the border, right? And then on the other side, there's this truck piled high with a bunch of Asian looking soldiers on top, or like military type people. Turns out they're Chinese trying to smuggle fake Marlboro cigarettes from Libya into Egypt. And because there was no government at the time, so they didn't have to pay a tariff or whatever leaving Libya. So the Libyan rebels wanted them to pay. They didn't want to pay. Anyway, long story short, a firefight ensues. And some of it sprays across. And our car gets hit 3 times.
Wow.
And I'm just like, holy shit. And we like freak out and go back and wait another 3 hours. And finally the guy's like, okay, I think we can cross the border now. So I'm just like,
You're like,
oh
are you sure?
this is great. So we go, and I'm like a little bit mentally taxed here. I'm like, what's happening? I'm totally going to die here, but that's okay. So we get up to the border and he goes, give me your passport. I was like, okay. Here's my passport. He goes, here's the deal. And I'm like, what? He goes, you're going to be a humanitarian dentist coming into Libya to do free dental work. And I'm like, dude, I'm not a fucking dentist. And he goes, doesn't matter. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're the only person here with straight white teeth.
Oh, how funny.
So I'm like, oh, okay. It seems like a terrible idea, but he does it. We get up to the border. He shows my passport to the guy. He speaks some Arabic to him. And then the guy kind of looks at me and he goes, and I'm like, and then he just goes, literally, welcome to Libya. And I was just like, oh my God, thank you. And so that was how I got into my last country, to visit every country in the world. And that was also the day that Gaddafi was killed. So I was in Libya the day he was killed, and I did a live interview from inside Libya that day. And that was kind of how I got my first taste of media attention for what I was doing. Not because I planned it, just because I was the only guy, dummy in Libya at that time. And I just did it kind of via satellite. It was pretty cool.
That sounds amazing. What a story.
Yeah.
God, you got shot out and everything. I don't know. I don't know how amazing that is, but
no, I mean,
that's a little frightening and scary all at the same time.
Makes a good story though.
It does make a great story. So what have you noticed? I mean, with the amount of media that's around and the way they make the world look and everything, and you just spoke something, you said the word corruption. How really corrupt do you see the world, or is it media is just full of shit?
Well,
and
I think
just make more out to what it really is.
I think that governments, especially in developing nations, like surely in like South America and Africa, I mean, the people in charge are completely corrupt, almost universally. And, if you look at places like, Venezuela or Argentina, or pick a country in like Western Central Africa, almost always it just never works out, right? And then all of a sudden there's a Swiss bank account full of like a ton of money and the guy just disappears, right? In exile, like living a lavish lifestyle. And it's just kind of the way it is. Like being in charge in places like that is essentially a license to steal, and they do. So the people who are on his, close advisors and things like that, they all benefit, whereas the rest of the country does not. I mean, think about how much international aid goes to a lot of these countries, right? Like tens and hundreds of millions of dollars a year. But nothing ever changes. No infrastructure improvements, no like education improvements.
That's why everybody's like, where's this money going?
Right, exactly. And that's where it goes.
Going in the line in their pockets,
Exactly. So, I mean, there is a lot of that. And then on like, a smaller level, like on the street, you'll get, if you're in certain countries and you see someone like me coming down the road, they'll think, I can, kind of shake them down for a couple bucks or whatever. And the truth is, the way I look at it, it's just kind of like the cost of doing business. And, and again, the money's negligible. So I usually just kind of give them a couple bucks or whatever the equivalent in the local currency is. Just, you kind of feel bad, to be honest, a little bit, but also just to avoid any hassles, especially when it's the cops, because that's a nightmare, because the last thing you want to do is end up in jail in some like random country for doing nothing.
I mean, do you feel like you're a target sometimes? I mean, you're a white guy.
Yeah.
Like you just said, perfect, beautiful teeth. By the way, if you're not on my YouTube, this guy's handsome as shit. So anyway, I would see that. You'd walk into some of these countries and it's just like a walking, like, billboard, target kind of thing. Yeah,
I mean, this, you know what I mean? It's kind of like if you walked around certain places too, you'd be a target with blonde hair and, it's just like one of those things. I mean, most people just want to like talk to you and practice English or take a photo with you or something like that. And, they don't know who you are or anything like that, but they just don't see people like you a lot. And it's kind of touching most of the time, but then not everyone's not corrupt or nice. So it happens not that often, but it does happen for sure.
So now that you've visited all these countries, I mean, what's next for you? Do you go back to different ones that you actually love and visit? And I mean, where would those be? Yeah,
I mean, I go back to, I've been to, I think it's 140 countries more than once. And, just because you went to a country doesn't mean you saw everything, right?
Oh, God, yes, absolutely.
Right. If you go to Brazil, like just going to Rio doesn't mean you've seen Brazil.
Okay, that leads really quickly. And that is, how many days or weeks or how long do you normally stay in one spot?
Yeah, it just kind of depends. Like, if you go to a country like India or Brazil, you want to spend a few weeks in if you're just going to go one time. But usually each time I go back, I'll pick a different area that I haven't been to and try to, be really comprehensive about my visit. And, if you go to Europe, like for instance, if you go to London or Paris multiple times, I always try to stay in like a different area, like a new hotel, and kind of just have a different experience, because even if you've been there, it just feels like a new place and new experience. And that's really what I enjoy the most, is new experiences.
We're going to take a break real quick. We'll be right back. And when we come back, I want to know the 3 different things. Where would you go on a shoestring budget, middle of the road? And if you had money was no object, where would you go? We'll be right back. For those of you that want to rock my gear, check out my store at icet-shirts.com. Find the gladiator in you with these iconic styles. Get your Chillin' with Ice gear along with many other cool styles, such as the OG Gladiator. We have that in t-shirts, hats, and hoodies. Plus my all-time favorite, the beautiful badass t-shirt. I've got a hat to match that one and so much more. Score your Ice merch today, icet-shirts.com, where legends live on. All right, we're back with Lee, and I have a question that is like, okay, a lot of people want to travel, but let's say they don't have a lot of money. So where would you suggest them to go if they're just on a very small budget, but yet they want to travel?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to kind of attack that. And like when I first started traveling, that was me, exactly. So it was, first of all, you can stay in these things called hostels, and which are essentially shared accommodation, like little crappy hotels, but they're so much fun. And basically I spent my entire 20s staying in hostels, because you meet a ton of people, like-minded people about your age doing the same thing. And that's really cool. And especially in Europe, where it's pretty expensive these days.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it on a relatively small budget, even though it's not as cheap as it used to be. But the cheapest place in the world still is Southeast Asia. Places like Thailand and Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar. And it's just so awesome out there. And you'll run into so many people on a budget, doing that type of thing. And you get to see so much and experience so much. And there's so much cool culture down there, and the food's unbelievable, and it's cheap. Like in Bangkok, you can get a bowl of pad thai on the street for like a quarter, It's awesome. And it's like some of the best things you've ever tasted. And
I heard Thailand's gorgeous.
It's so good. It's like in my top 10 for sure. And everywhere in Southeast Asia is cool, and everyone's chill. I mean, it's hotter than hell, but I mean, other than that, it's pretty awesome. So,
okay, middle of the road.
Middle of the road, places like Peru.
Okay.
Machu Picchu, everyone wants to see Machu Picchu. Places like Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Argentina, Buenos Aires is just awesome. Patagonia, you can do some kind of budget trips in the mountains. They're middle of the road, but still awesome. And then places in Europe. I mean, not necessarily high-end London, Paris kind of stuff, but go to Prague. Prague is amazing, or like Vienna. Vienna's super cool. Barcelona, places like that, Madrid. And, you can really get a lot done. Oh, and Turkey is another one that I absolutely love. Turkey's incredible. So much to do, and it's really not that expensive. And there's actually like kind of middle of the road to budget safaris that you can do too, which is my favorite thing in the world to do, is safaris. So you don't have to do these like lavish ones that you'll see like, the Kardashians on or something. Yeah. But you can, like normal people, safaris are still super nice and really, really cool.
So tell me that you said that's one of your most favorite things to do. Tell me why.
Just because I love animals, number one,
too, yeah.
and like I love landscapes. And when you go to a place like the Serengeti or the Masai Mara or Kruger National Park, you're just like, it's the stuff I don't know, at least my dad used to like watch Nat Geo all the time. And like these
National Geographic magazine was like all over our house.
Totally. So you're living National Geographic, and and I've been on so many safaris, but each one is like the best day of my life. Because you're seeing all these animals that you never normally get to see, and they're always doing different things. And you just kind of take a step back and realize how fortunate you are to be able to do it and watch these animals where they live and doing what they do. And once in a while you'll see a chase or a kill or something like that.
I don't know if I could see a kill.
It's
so hard.
It's nature.
I know it's human nature. I get that, but I'd be like, no, stop.
Yeah.
It's so one of those kind of things.
But it's pretty cool. And like when you see a giraffe up close or an elephant for the first time, rhino, oh my God, it's just the coolest thing. And again, the lodges for safaris are always awesome. You meet interesting people. Like nobody just stumbles onto a safari. You have to make effort. And generally the people are pretty cool and interesting. And I just love it. It's just so good for me.
What have you learned about yourself doing all this?
Number one, that I have a lot more patience when I travel than in my real life.
Really? Why is that?
Because like you have to, especially in less developed nations. Like there's a term that's kind of famous out there. It's called "This is Africa," like TIA, right?
Right.
And that just means everything moves at like molasses pace, right? Okay. And you just have to be patient, and otherwise you lose your mind. And you can't like yell at people, to hurry up, because then no one's gonna help you, right? It's like being at the airport and like yelling at TSA or like somebody's
just look at you,
just like fuck you.
Exactly.
So I've taught myself to kind of chill and take things as they come and kind of roll with the punches. And that's the other thing. Like, you never plan too stringently. Always gotta, kind of bob and weave a little bit, because nothing really ever goes exactly according to plan.
Never.
Nope.
How many languages do you know now?
I speak Spanish, and I'm pretty good with languages. Like, I know enough to get by, and like French and Italian and Portuguese mostly, and I can read Cyrillic, so like the Russian language. Wow. I don't know what the words mean, but I can sound them out.
Right.
And I can read Greek and Hebrew too.
Okay. All right. So let's say money's no object. Where would you go, and what would you do? Man,
that's tough. Well, you mentioned Bora Bora before. Some of the hotels and resorts and like places
stupid expensive,
like French Polynesia, or like the Maldives or Seychelles or something like that. Like some of these, pick like Four Seasons, Alman. I mean, they're like unbelievable. The Brando Resort down in French Polynesia, stuff like that. If you hop around on a private jet would be pretty awesome, or just like really doing it up in like a suite in Dubai, like at the Burj Al Arab or something like that, or in Paris, like at the Hotel Ritz, that type of thing. Yeah. Like really spoiling yourself, or some of the most amazing safari lodges in Africa. I mean, those to me are the nicest hotels in the world. They're the top safari lodges.
God, that would be just amazing.
And I would tell you to go to the South Pole, because that is like the coolest trip ever.
Talk to me. Tell me about the South Pole. Why? First of all, why the South Pole? Why? I mean, I know you wanted to hit everything.
Right. So, once I'd gone to every country, I was just like, it was kind of a dream to like go to the South Pole, not necessarily the North Pole, but the South Pole, because it's at like 9,300 feet. It's on the continent of Antarctica. It's not the same as taking the ship from like Argentina to the peninsula and just seeing a few penguins. I wanted to go all the way to the pole, like where Ernest Shackleton died trying to get to, and Robert Falcon Scott died trying to get to, and so many people. It was like the apex of exploration in the early 20th century, right? And to get there was just such a cool thing. And obviously, I didn't have to mush dogs like across like the continent, but to get there was a huge challenge. It was very expensive, and getting there was like the coolest moment of my life.
Is it too personal to ask when you say very expensive? Is it too personal to go, what is that?
It was over $100,000. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had to go twice, because the first time we failed to go to make it. That was the year I was actually there with Prince Harry. So it wasn't like I was there with him like he's my friend, but he just happened to be there like when I was.
Because I would have thought that, right? When you said it. I was like, damn, he's friends with Prince Harry.
I did get to meet him, and all the people he was with, because we were all kind of waiting for our opportunity to go, and then our time frame just kind of expired, and we had to leave, which was like the most enraging thing that's ever happened to me, because you put so much time, effort, and money into it, and then you come back and you don't make it. And so I had to go back the next year, and by the skin of our teeth, we actually did make it. And now they actually offer like private jets down there. It's like the industry has evolved so much in like 10 years, because I was there and I made it in 2014, so almost 10 years ago. And it would have been a lot easier if...
So you get there.
Yeah.
Then what? I mean, it's like, is it just the fact of just making it there?
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah. It's just, honestly, it's like just the coolest thing. It's like the apex of getting anywhere. They're like, there's nowhere in the world that's as exclusive to get to, really. I mean, there's some like really remote islands that no one watching this has ever heard of that I could bore you with. But the South Pole, that's the spot. And like, you take the picture with the actual pole there, and it's just the coolest thing. South Pole Station, the U.S. Scientific base is there. They actually have a basketball court in there, by the way. And I made them let me inside because I wanted my passport stamped. And so I'm like literally banging on the door of this scientific station. And they're like,
stamp this.
And they let me come in, and I shot some baskets and stamped my passport. And then they were there. We were there for about 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And honestly, it was so cool. And I was there with like two of my good friends. And it was just an amazing experience. I'll never forget. And then a year and a half later, I went to the North Pole.
So tell me about the North Pole. I mean, what's the difference? Let's go there.
The major difference is Antarctica is a continent. So the South Pole is actually at elevation at 9,300 feet, whereas the North Pole is on drifting sea ice. So it's at sea level and there's no land mass, right? So like when you fly there, and we flew, there's a permanent ice camp, or a temporary ice camp, I should say, set up at Borneo, which is at 89.5 degrees north. And from there, we took a Soviet era military helicopter from there to the actual geographic coordinate of 90 degrees north, 0.
Yeah, I saw the picture of that. That was so cool.
And oh man, it was so exciting to land there and to be there. And the outfit that I went with, they had this like really expensive bottle of vodka because it was run by the Russians. And so we get there and everyone on there, takes a shot of like really expensive Russian vodka. It was just the coolest thing. And at that time I was like the youngest person to go to every country in the world in both poles. And I believe I still am. So it's kind of cool.
So how young was the first person that you met that you went, hey, this is really cool? I mean, how old are you right now?
I'm 45 now.
You're 45. So when you accomplished all this, how old were you?
32.
32. Wow.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, pretty neat, right?
That is really cool. Hang gliding. Oh my God. That is one thing. Here's something interesting. I'm afraid of heights as I've gotten older. Which I don't even understand what that's all about when walking up something, I don't know, a glass elevator going up to, 100 stories. I don't know. However, I really think that I could hang glide. It wouldn't bother me at all. It looks fascinating. And I mean, I've rappelled out of a helicopter before, which is fun as shit.
Yeah.
I mean, all these weird things. So did you know how to hang glide, or were you just like, okay, dude, I want to do this now?
I have no idea how to hang glide. I still don't.
Was it tandem?
Yeah, it's tandem.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, have you skydived?
No. And here's the weird thing. I have no desire to jump out of a plane, but I want to hang glide.
Right. So it's a similar kind of thing to skydiving. It's like the person who knows what they're doing doesn't want to die. So, I just always kind of, he's like, all right, he knows what he's doing. I'll just kind of, it's kind of like the pilot on a plane, right? Like, the pilot knows what he's doing. He doesn't want to crash either, you know? So that was kind of my thoughts on that. But to do it in Rio was just awesome because Rio is probably, I'll say, the second most beautiful city in the world after Cape Town, South Africa.
Oh, okay.
And to hang glide over it and like, Christ the Redeemer, the big Jesus statue down there and like, see Sugarloaf Mountain and Copacabana and, it's just so wild and it's so cool and had perfect weather that day. And you land on the beach in Leblon and it was so awesome. I just really loved it.
So when you're traveling, are people always like, oh my God, come over here. I want to take you here, or let's try this? Do you meet a lot of people that are constantly like, you've got to try this or you got to go here?
Everyone's experience with wherever they've been is the best experience ever, right?
Yes.
So that's what I've learned. So like if I announce I'm going somewhere or somebody sees on social that I'm somewhere, like, oh my God, you're in Paris. You have to go to this restaurant. It's the best thing ever.
That's what I mean.
And I'm like, everyone thinks everything that they've done is the best thing ever, or they want to share their experience with you. And I totally get it. You know what I mean? And sometimes I do listen, so I appreciate when people do make suggestions, but also you realize that some people's experiences and tastes are different than yours or just, it's like I always make a joke, right? Like if you see somebody in Las Vegas walking down the strip with a big yard of a fruity drink, it's probably their first time in Vegas, right? Exactly. But they think Fat Tuesday is like the greatest place in the world.
Exactly.
I don't.
I know. That is so funny you say that. You're right. These drinks are like 3 feet long. They're like sucking on that big ass straw and you're just like, oh.
I love Vegas.
Exactly. You're going to have a nice hangover in the morning.
So yeah, you get that, but I take everything with a grain of salt, and I never try to insult anybody or whatever. And and again, if a couple people do suggest something, usually be like, okay, this must be okay. And a lot of times, if I'm in an area or like a hotel or something, I'll ask like a concierge and be like, is this restaurant good? And they'll be like, yeah, or no. And I usually listen to the kind of local people who generally know best.
Let's go more the dangerous side, like hang gliding. Are people like when you go into a country, they're like, come on, let's go do this. Let's go. I don't know, jump off of this or dive off of that. Have you ever dove off something that's super high, by the way?
Yeah, sure.
Tell me. Where? So, I didn't read any of that. I'm just asking that.
I've jumped off, like we were talking, you mentioned in your intro, so bungee jumping is a big thing for me. Love. And
really?
Yeah. And,
better than hang gliding?
For me, it is because it's more exciting. You're by yourself, number one. And like you're just standing there on the edge of the bridge, just like looking down like, oh, fuck.
No, that's what I couldn't do. I couldn't stand there. I'd almost like maybe like get that anxiety, that lightheadedness. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to fall off then.
So the key is to look out on the horizon before you dive, and like don't like look down, and just kind of when the guy does the countdown 3, 2, 1, go, just go. Don't think about it.
Yeah.
So I went. The world's highest bungee jump is in South Africa, and so me and my 2 best friends still to this day, we were down there, and one of my buddies, like, he was terrified, and I won't say his name because he's gonna hear this and like, be like, you're an asshole. But he got out there and he was so scared to go. He didn't even wait for the countdown. His knees just buckled and he fell off.
Oh, see, that would be me.
It was the funniest thing I ever saw.
Oh my God.
We still talk about it to this day. It was great. But I mean, there's no right or wrong way. If you get out there, you got some serious balls to get out there and do that. But hang gliding is just like kind of like beautiful, right? It's like relaxing. It's not like that intense. I mean, they can make it intense if they want to, but usually for tourists, they'll just be nice, you know?
The bungee jump, man. I don't know though. Okay, how high is it? The highest you said?
That was, I think it was around 800 feet, give or take. I think there's one higher now in Macau, off the big Macau tower. I haven't done that one yet though, but I've done all the other highest in the world.
Jeff, have you ever bungee jumped?
No, I haven't yet, but I am very interested in skydiving.
You should do it, man. You love
Why,
it.
why not bungee jumping?
Lori, you want to go skydiving?
No, but
do a podcast about it.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Now?
Do a podcast about it. Your experience before and after.
Oh man, I don't know.
We'll do it during it. I'll have the mixer. I'll have the mics. Try to reach out and everything. Like, what are you feeling right now?
No. I
really
don't know.
want to do it over a beach, preferably.
Over a beach?
Yeah, like over by the beach. Like I think the closest place from here in LA is in Camarillo, which is like desert.
Yeah, it's like Ventura. I've been up there.
Yeah, it's like Ventura. Yeah, but then you could go more towards like San Diego, and that has more of like kind of on the coastline. And I think that'd be really, really dope.
I don't know. Bungee jumping does sound fun. I don't know about hang gliding. I mean, whatchamacallit, jumping
skydiving.
I've had so many people ask me to skydive, and I just don't really have a desire. I don't know why. Like I said, I'll jump out of a helicopter and rappel off the side of it, and I have no problem with it. I don't know why. But jumping out of a plane, I'm just like, I don't know if it's overrated.
Bungee jumping with me is just being upside down for that amount of time.
Well, most of them actually have a device where you kind of pull it after you've done your jump, and you kind of go right side up when it pulls you up. So they thought about that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm down to bungee jump then.
Although I have done ones like in Victoria Falls. Absolute nightmare. You're just hanging upside down, and then they just like winch you up. It's called. Yeah. And like there's like this like 9-year-old kid like pulling you up, and you're just like,
oh my God,
all the blood's like rushing your head.
My entire life is in
it's just
your
like
hands.
they wrap a towel around your ankles at that one, and just this little like rubber band around your ankles. You're like, you sure you know what you were doing, kid?
Yeah.
I can't even believe you even remotely would try that.
I did it 4 times too.
4 times.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself kind of like one of those extreme kind of sports dudes?
I mean, I used to. I don't like do half the crazy stuff that I used to do. As I've gotten older, I've gotten like less, interested in risking my life.
Yeah.
But for sure, like in my 20s and early 30s, I was like all about that.
You snowboard or ski?
I actually don't, because I don't like the cold.
Wow, look at you.
I mean, I can. I've done it before, but I don't really enjoy it. There's just a lot of equipment. It's like kind of annoying, and like I don't do it often enough where I'm good, and I don't like not being good at things. And like, I don't know. I mean, maybe one of these days I'll get into it, but as of now, no. But I do like other
I'm
extreme
surprised
sports.
because snowboarding's that is fun. I mean, you can just haul ass down a mountain.
People love it, and I'm sure it's great, and I'm sure I'm missing out, but
it's just like bungee jumping off a 800-foot like bridge. I'm like, it's kind of fun. I mean, some people like it, whatever. I'm like, oh, hell no.
Maybe this winter I'll get up to Mammoth or something and try it out.
So it's so much fun. I think that if you actually gave it a shot, you've probably tried it. Anyway, I mean, that's crazy. Here's an interesting question for you, and I don't even know if you could answer this question.
Okay.
Out of all the travel you've done, put it all together, how much money do you actually think you have spent on travel?
I get that question a lot.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. See, I think I have like all these unique questions. I'm like, shit. Okay.
The answer is that I don't even actually want to know because it would probably nauseate me. But it's surely in the high 6 figures, if not into 7 for sure. We're talking over many years. It's not like I spent that like last week or anything like that. I mean, the South Pole trips alone are, in the 6 figures. The North Pole trip is like probably $30,000 or $40,000. And, and then a lot of the other trips, just like nothing is specifically expensive, but if you're doing a lot of it together, it really adds up. And, and I paid for a lot of it myself. I had some of it, luckily sponsored and, or paid for, which was nice when I started doing this for a living. So all in all, I'd say right around there.
What were you like as a kid?
Just normal. I just played sports, but I was always into collecting. That's kind of the tie-in.
Did you collect all the currency, like from all the countries?
I'm so glad I didn't, because then it would have gotten out of control. It's like if I used to want to collect like a ball from every golf course I played, and now I've played like 600 plus golf courses. Like, what do you do with 600 plus golf balls?
Well, we're going to talk about golf in a second. Go ahead. I gotta hear this.
But yeah, I mean, I like to collect things, and like I always liked lists. And I still like lists, right? And because it gives you a goal. And it's not like I live my life by these lists, but it's fun to kind of know what's around. It's like best restaurant lists, like even just in LA, right? Or best cocktail bars or best pizza, things like that. So
you kept a list when you were a kid.
I always had lists, yeah.
But what were your lists when you were a kid? Best G.I. Joes. I mean,
it was like I used to collect just like dumb stuff. Right, baseball cards was my big one. So I had baseball. I gotta
give you my baseball card. Go ahead.
Love it. Huge baseball guy, huge sports fan, still always, and everything sports card related was my thing growing up. And then like doing every sport and like I don't know, things like that, and just. With golf, like getting your handicap down or like hitting X amount of home runs in baseball, everything was like a goal. Always have goals.
Brothers, sisters?
One sister.
Older or younger?
Younger, 2.5 years younger.
You grew up in New York?
Just outside in Trumbull, Connecticut.
Never heard of it.
Small town, about 45 minutes from the city. We won the 1989 Little League World Series. That's our claim to fame.
Right on.
Yeah.
Very cool. Are you going to settle down and have kids one day, or that's it?
We shall see.
It's like, I'm not quite sure about this yet. I am so happy I got to sit and talk with you.
Me too. This is awesome.
First of all, it was kind of cool because I met you over at Crystal's house, Crystal Hefner, when I did her podcast. And when you walked in, you're like, oh my God, you're Ice. And I was like, you know me?
Well, Crystal told me you were going to be there. So I was just like,
oh, is that why you showed up early? No,
yeah, it was actually because I was a huge American Gladiators fan when I was a kid. I watched like all the time. I didn't expect to meet you, but then when she told me she was doing it with you, I was like, oh, come by early and get to meet her. That'd be awesome.
So cool.
So it worked out.
I want to play golf with you.
Love. Anytime.
What's your handicap though?
I don't actually keep a handicap anymore.
Roughly.
But
so I know what kind of player you are.
Low single digit handicap.
Okay. So 9, 10-ish, maybe?
A little lower.
Oh, shit, you're good.
Pretty good. Not great, but pretty good,
That's pretty cool.
I played Riviera yesterday, actually.
I know, I saw that on your Instagram.
So awesome.
What's your favorite golf course you've played?
That's a good question. So in the U.S., the best courses I've played are Bandon Dunes up in Oregon. So there's actually 5 courses plus a short course, and they're all like top 15 ranked public courses in America. It's just like the most stunning golf resort in the United States for sure. Mm-hmm. And out in Europe, there's one called Royal County Down, which if you look at all these like top 10 lists in the world, it's always like top 3, and it's awesome. It really is.
I can't wait. I do want to play with you. I have been into golf now, I want to say about 20 years. I wish I had started when I was young.
I wish I had started younger too.
I was an athlete and I always called it the lazy man sport.
Yeah.
Because I was a softball player myself. Yeah. And the first time I hit a golf club and that sweet spot felt like a home run hit.
I always say that there's nothing like, I was fortunate to hit a bunch of home runs when I was a kid, and that's like the best feeling, right? Yep. But when you just like nut a drive like 300 yards or something like that, and just you hit it and you don't even feel it, you're just like, oh my God, this is the best feeling in the world. And that's what people don't understand when you're like obsessed about golf and you're like, you don't get it. It's just like the best, like if you've ever been fortunate to have a hole in one, the greatest feeling like maybe ever.
You know what's so funny is that I've never had a hole in one, but yet at the same time, I just think it's pure luck. So therefore I'm like,
It's skill meets luck.
Oh, whatever.
I mean, you have to be good to hit it there, but then it's a little ball, a little hole. It takes some luck,
I understand that, but oh my God, it's my favorite golf course that I've actually played on is Pelican.
Oh, I love
Pelican.
I love them both. They're both great.
I know. But I didn't know that you were a golfer, and then I started watching your Instagram. I was like, holy shit, he's a golfer. I got to play.
Yeah.
I started playing tournaments a little bit.
Name the place. Let's do it.
Love playing tournaments.
Where do you play out here?
I love Angeles National because it's up by my house.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I played that probably 6 times.
Yeah, that's a nice little place. And I'm pretty much, I'll go wherever,
Same.
just to play with, whoever's open. They're like, hey, Lori, come play golf. And I'm like, okay, please don't make it 6 a.m. because I'm not that person.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Angeles National is a tough course. Those greens are tough.
Yeah, they are tough.
They're just gnarly.
And that's where I actually worked there as a ranger like years ago.
Really?
When I first started, actually, 20 years ago or something like that, just for fun, because I wanted to play free and I wanted to practice like all the time because I came obsessed with it.
Right.
Being an athlete, and it's like all of a sudden you get that golf in your blood. You're just like, I just want to do it every day.
That's what's great about golf, right? Like if you're an athlete and you like to compete, like obviously we both did, you can compete against yourself playing golf. That's what's great about golf, right? Like you can just practice and get better and beat your best score, like whatever your goal is, and it's just really, or just go to the putting green or driving range and just like work on your game. It's awesome.
I know, it's always the putt for, what is it? Drive for show, putt for dough.
Correct, yeah.
And I have to force myself to putt because I love to grab that driver and just like, I can do about a 300 drive. 300,
nice.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference between like a pro and like a good amateur is the short game and putting. I mean, that's really it. Because a lot of people can crush the ball. You know what I mean? People can hit irons well, but it's making putts, especially consistently, like an 8-foot putt,
Yeah.
That's where the pros just really get you. Or getting up and down from the bunker or the rough,
Yep, I know. I absolutely love the game.
Yep.
But here's the problem with me too. I'm only a fair weather player. When it gets cold and rainy, I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't know.
There's nothing worse than playing golf in the cold, rain, or wind.
I'm kind of like you, and like you said, it's cold. I mean, I really don't like being in the snow that much, but I'll do it to snowboard. But when it comes to golf, it's like it's just got to be beautiful out. But yes, are you kind of standard in LA a lot? Are you still traveling a lot? Because
I'm traveling a lot less than I used to.
Okay, good, because I just want to know when I could play golf with you.
just text me. I'm down.
Just a selfish question.
I'm easy. I'll go anywhere too. So
I love that.
Let's do it.
Lee, thank you so much for being on my
Laura,
podcast.
you're the best. Thank you.
I mean, seriously, I know my listeners are going to get so much out of this. They're just going to have so much fun. Don't go anywhere though, because I have a Patreon account, and a lot of my Patreon account has rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I get about 2 more minutes with you. And thank you so much for listening today on Chillin' with Ice. And this is where legends live on. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening to Chillin' with Ice. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share wherever you listen to your podcast. Remember to follow us on Patreon and YouTube at Chillin' with Ice. And on Instagram and TikTok, you can follow me at lori.ice.fetrick. I look forward to chilling with you next time here on Chillin' with Ice.